So if you own a timeshare and you're not booking one of these when you're going to places like Orlando, Las Vegas, Palm Desert, or many other places, you're missing out on some huge savings. Let's talk about it right after this. Hello and welcome to Destination Timeshare. I'm Jeremy, and before we get into tip number 6 of my 25 timeshare tips of VLOGMAS 2020, I just want to let you know on this channel, I like to provide my knowledge, tips, and advice to help you get the most from your timeshare ownership. So if that sounds like what you want to see, be sure to hit subscribe down below. Also, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on a single video. Alright, let's get into this. Let's start talking about getaways, ACs, extra vacations, and last call. This is some things that you can be looking at and you should be looking at if you're planning to go on vacation to places where there's simply an oversupply of available inventory. Places like I mentioned, Orlando, Las Vegas, even Palm Desert in California. Mexico is another one that has a lot of extra inventory as well. A ton of timeshares in Mexico. But what you need to be looking at are accommodation certificates, getaways, extra vacations, and last call. Getaways and ACs, or accommodation certificates, are an Interval International program, and last call and extra vacations are in RCI. I don't know too much about RCI. I don't own any timeshares affiliated with RCI. Essentially, my understanding of those is extra vacations and last call are essentially just extra inventory that they can't get rid of through the exchange program, or maybe it's inventory that developers deposit that they try and rent out for cash. Last call obviously kind of sounds a little bit like last minute inventory, probably the cheapest of the cheap, but obviously not the most desirable locations, or even maybe not even the most desirable properties. So do be sure to read reviews on properties that you want to visit to make sure that they're up to the standards that you're expecting. So let's now talk about getaways and accommodation certificates with Interval International. Getaways are essentially just that. It's kind of a last minute or extra inventory that Interval International is trying to rent out. And if you're going to places like Orlando, Las Vegas, or those other ones that I mentioned, definitely look at getaways first. You do not need to use 1 year deposited weeks, and in those places the cost of the getaway may only be a few $100s, much less than your maintenance fee. You might be paying a maintenance fee of say $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, and you're going to exchange that into a place like Orlando where you could just instead go and pay cash for a getaway at a beautiful resort like Marriott's Grand Vista, Sheraton Vistana Villages behind me, Sheraton Vistana Resort, Harbor Lake, Cypress Harbor, Lakeshore Reserve. Any of those, some are easier to get than others, and obviously the larger the unit, the higher the cost. And again, certain times of year are maybe almost impossible to get through getaways, or they're significantly more expensive. So think Christmas, it's going to be very expensive. Think 4th of July, Easter, spring break. Those are either not going to be available via getaway, or they're going to be extremely expensive. Or if they are available, you might only be able to find studio units, 1-bedroom units. 2-bedroom units might not be there. But they can save you significant amounts of money, and you don't need to use your expensive maintenance fee deposited week to go to places like Orlando real cheap. Like I said a bit ago, why use that $1,400 maintenance fee to exchange into Orlando when you might be able to come here for $200 or $300, $400, even $500? Just does not make sense. So that is actually one thing. We actually took advantage of these getaways through Interval and booked a getaway for only $199 to Sheraton Vistana Resort here in Orlando. I actually did another video about that. I'll link to it right up here. But yeah, that is a great way to come to these places real cheap. Now, accommodation certificates are kind of the same thing, but a little bit different. And essentially, these are things that Interval usually gives out for free, or as a condition of maybe depositing your week with them. So in order to maybe incentivize you to give them your week for deposit, maybe you have a valuable week that they're looking for, that they know a lot of other owners want, and they want to be able to match those other owners up with your week. So obviously they get then an exchange fee when they do that, and they would also get an exchange fee when you exchange out of your deposit as well. But they may incentivize you to deposit a week and give you what they call an accommodation certificate, or they even sometimes hand these out for free And essentially it just has a fee attached to it when you want to go and book somewhere. It's usually tied to what we call a grid, so you can only go to certain locations and you can search for certain locations for certain months of the year. Not every location is going to be available every month, but in most cases, places like Orlando, Las Vegas, they're usually on the grid year-round, or sometimes those peak months, July, last 2 weeks of December, you won't be able to find any availability using accommodation certificates. What these are is essentially just for pretty much a flat fee, sometimes a tiered fee depending on the size of the unit. You can book into a magnificent resort like I have behind me here. So just another way, make sure you're checking your My Units in your Interval International account to look for those certificates. Okay, so there you have it. Getaways, accommodation certificates, last call, and extra vacations. Make sure you're checking into those before you go to places like Orlando and those other ones I mentioned. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos about timeshare, check out the description box below. For another timeshare tip video, check out this one right up here, and YouTube. They think you're going to like that one down there. Be sure to subscribe. You can do so by clicking on my picture right here. Hit that notification bell, and until next time, let's make your next destination a timeshare.